Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, you know who's not having a fantastic day? Once again, we have a story of a cruise line turning away customers at the port. And quite frankly, this should never, ever have happened. So we have a Canadian family, a father and son, who won a cruise. They won an MSC cruise. Hooray! Right when the pandemic hit. That sounds familiar. I have a cruise I won as well that I haven't been able to take from the pandemic as well. So let's just, but you know, great. They were able to stretch it out. They were supposed to use it last year. They were able to stretch it out to this year. They booked it for October. Great. Now, they contacted MSC Cruise Lines and they said, is there any problems? Before we buy expensive flights and book hotels and all the things, get the testing done and all that, we're coming from Canada, we're fully vaccinated, is there anything we need to do? Is there any problems? Should we not do this? Should we postpone it to another time? And the contacts at MSC apparently told them no. And apparently they have emails as well as the phone conversations that they held out. So off they go, and they're all happy. They're about to get their free cruise. You know, it costs them, you know, probably about $2,000-3,000 anyway with flights, the way prices are right now with airlines from Canada. Another a night in a hotel, maybe two. But they get down there and they get to the port and they are refused boarding. Why? Well, according to them, they're denied boarding because they're Canadian. And no other reason. They say they were quickly told, nope, sorry, you can't get on because you're Canadian. And when they protested, say, what are you talking about? We called you. We told you. You have our information. You have our credit cards. You have our home address. You have everything that we signed up for this cruise with as Canadians. How are you now telling us we can't get on the ship? And at one point, they were finally, after arguing and putting up a fight and an argument about it, as you can imagine, you can get pretty upset if you just spent a bunch of money to go on a cruise and they're told, turn around. Now you're stuck in Florida. And by the way, your flight's not for another 7 days from there. So they said at one point the sheriff actually escorted them out of the terminal. That's to the point that this got. So they're saying that it is strictly because they were Canadian citizens, and they have a letter that they were shown that says right on it a list of reasons why people are denied boarding, and on that piece of paper at the bottom it says other. And the other is written Canadian citizens. It's, you know, unvaccinated, and all these other, you know, tested positive, all these different things. Down there at the bottom it says, because they're Canadian citizens. So what did MSC Cruise Line say when the news companies started to contact them and ask them about it? Well, before I tell you, let me just invite you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Really helps the channel out. It tells YouTube, hey, people are watching the video. You will be kept up to date with all these news stories and possible, you know, interference with your cruises, new changes in protocols, all the things coming up. And it doesn't cost a thing. It just says, hey, there's a new video out. So what did MSC come out and respond to? Well, CBC News, which is the Canadian Broadcast Corporation in Canada, one of the biggest news stations, they said, no, they weren't denied because they're Canadian citizens. No. They were denied because they didn't have proper insurance. They didn't have insurance for cancellation, and they didn't have insurance for trip interruption. So that's why they were denied. Of course, That wasn't what was written on that piece of paper. And I'm going, oh, is it mandatory to have insurance on MSC cruises? So I went to their website and I searched on the Canadian website, msccruises.ca, and I went to their health advisories, and I went to their Caribbean cruises, and I looked up their requirements. And if you notice on their requirements, it says as of November 1st. Doesn't say October. As of November 1st, it says we will be welcoming Canadians. And as far as the insurance is concerned, it says we recommend insurance, but it is not mandatory. So I also know that in October, they weren't accepting Canadian citizens. They weren't accepting UK citizens. They weren't accepting anybody but US citizens. So this should never, ever, ever have gotten to that booking stage. This should have been red flagged right away. The client should have been contacted. They should have been told, hey, no, don't worry, sorry, we can't bring you now, but things are changing in November. Starting November, we'll be accepting international travelers once again, and you'll be welcome on board then. Can we reschedule you for some time after that? It was not red flagged, even though MSC Cruise Line had all of the information. And I have gotten this myself. I have called myself and seen if I could make a booking as a Canadian, and I was able to. So I told them right away, after I was able to make that, getting ready to make that booking and finalize it, I said, hey, are you sure Canadians are allowed to go? Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? Well, because Canadians are being turned away at the port. So can you please double check with your supervisor that that's the case? And they double checked with their supervisor, and that was the case. So I've done a couple videos on this already. Now, we're almost at the end of the month. There's only a few days left, and the policies will change. But until I would see anybody that's Canadian stepping foot on an MSC cruise ship, I would be very hesitant to book one right now if you're anything but a US citizen. And even your US citizenship, I would start checking every single time their protocols for getting on board. Do you need to be vaccinated? That's a given, right? But do you need insurance? Do you need a certain type of insurance, even if you are vaccinated? For most cruise lines out there, you only need to have the cancellation, trip interruption, and COVID insurance if you're unvaccinated. If you are vaccinated, you are covered by the cruise line's insurance. So, and their protocols. So, yeah. This is a story that I should never ever have to, like, how did this get this far? How did nobody on the cruise line side pick this up? All their information, their passports are Canadian, their billing address is Canadian, their credit cards are Canadian, their mailing address is Canadian, their phone numbers are Canadian, their email is in Canada. They booked from Canada. How in the world did this get to that point? Somebody dropped the ball. So for the cruise line to come out and say that it was because of insurance, that was not the case. I don't know who in public relations came up with that. Did somebody just panic when they were asked the question and say that's the reasoning? But that was definitely not the reason. The entire reason was because they were Canadian citizens. And I bring this up just to remind everybody, no matter who you're sailing with or what cruise line you're sailing with, doesn't matter if you're Canadian, UK, Asian, Australian, US, doesn't matter. Find out every possible detail to make sure you're not missing anything. Vaccination status, port status, testing status, insurance status, all those possible details that you might need, because a cruise line might just say, no, you don't have this and you're not coming on board. And I don't want that to happen to anyone else out there. I've heard too many now turned away at MSC, and even this family said, you know what, we weren't the only ones there. There were others that were canceled as well. Well, I hope you appreciate this update. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. We'll see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world. Hit that subscribe button. Till next time, Have yourself a safe and a great vacation.